Are our schools being used to push forward narrow political ideologies? What is the purpose of education? And how do we prevent activist education? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Joanna Williams, the founder and director of the independent think tank CIEO. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, Joanna. Firstly, could you just tell us a little about what has been happening in Brighton?
Yes, and thank you for having me. So this isn't a programme which is actually taking place directly with children, but this is a racial literacy programme for teaching staff. So it's teaching teachers, if you like, and telling teachers how they should conduct themselves in the classroom, how they should deal with children, and how they should coordinate discussions when issues of race arise in the classroom. And you're absolutely right, the key message of this training programme seems to be that young children, even very, very young children, are not racially innocent, that children as young as 6 and 7 are attaching a value to race based on people's skin colour, that they are putting white people at the top of a racial hierarchy and black people lower down the racial hierarchy, and that even very young children can have feelings of white supremacy, if you like, which may be more covert or overtly expressed, and that they need to be educated in the existence of their white privilege. And obviously the flip side of this is actually instruction for black pupils that they are racially disadvantaged and racially discriminated against. And it just seems to me that my own experience of having children and working as a teacher is that the really great thing about children, actually, particularly very young children, is that they tend not to see each other as representatives of different racial groups. You know, they're far more interested in who's best at football or, who's got the nicest new jacket or whatever it is. You know, they're not judging each other by skin colour. And so it seems to me that what's so terrible about these lessons is it really sends a message to children that they should be judging each other in that way.
But why do you think this is such a problem? I guess the counter-argument would be that in the height of the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, many educational establishments and many institutions across the country felt a responsibility, essentially, to respond to what was the emotive anger that was being expressed around what some people perceived of as racism being a problem that is rife within British society. And they would argue that many of these measures are effectively trying to rise to the challenge that was brought forward to them in 2020. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm sure you're absolutely right. I think if we want to be charitable, that definitely is what's driving these courses, and it particularly was a response to the Black Lives Matter movement that sprung up, particularly in the wake of the killing of George Floyd. But I think we have to be really careful about importing problems into places that don't exist. So it's almost as if we've taken a really horrific incident that happened in the US with adults and with police officers, and we've kind of said that it's somehow appropriate to draw lessons from that one horrific incident, which must then shape how we deal with young children in primary schools, even in the UK. And to me, that's a very tenuous connection to start drawing, because there is definitely a problem over here. We must therefore reach for solutions in rural primary schools in Brighton. So my fear is that in responding to an imagined problem or a projection of a problem, you're creating problems where they don't actually exist. And certainly, again, speaking as somebody who's worked in classrooms, was a teacher for a number of years, you would hope that if teachers did become aware of particular incidents of racial abuse, racial discrimination taking place among the children, that teachers should definitely act and nip that in the bud and have words with the pupils and tell them why behaving in that way is absolutely not appropriate, not a good thing for them to do anywhere, least of all in a classroom. But I think what's being proposed with these racial literacy teacher training sessions is actually something quite different. It's not about nipping a problem in the bud that has occurred or dealing with the problem that does exist. It's about preempting problems before they exist.